With immense happiness, I would like to let you know that this is the 24th AuroYouth online interactive session. We have started these sessions from June onwards to provide the youth with inner strength and spiritual outlook that will help them in navigating through life. Gratitude to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for guiding us into making this happen. We are extremely happy to have as today's facilitator Dr. Sampadananda Mishra, who is extremely passionate about Sanskrit. He strongly believes that Sanskrit has immense potentiality to elevate the human consciousness to sublime heights. Dr. Mishra has spoken at various conferences, seminars, and literary and religious festivals, both nationally and internationally, on Sanskrit, Indian culture, yoga, and education, based on the philosophy and practice of Sri Aurobindo's yoga. He founded and launched the first ever 24-hour Sanskrit radio called Divyavani, and is single-handedly managing the entire content since its inception in 2013. He also is a Kendra Sahitya Akadmi Awardee for his book Shanaih Shanaih. And in 2011, he also received the President of India Award, Maharshi Badrayana Vyas Samman, for his outstanding contribution in promoting Sanskrit. We are very delighted to have you with us. With this, I would now like to invite Sampada to take over.
Namo Namah to all of you. So it's always a great pleasure to speak on a topic which is very, very dear to my heart. And as I have shared it with thousands of youths and thousands of people, many innovative ideas about how to promote Sanskrit, how to bring Sanskrit to the masses. The very question comes like, why Sanskrit? Sometimes when we put it on the social media, something about Sanskrit, immediately you will find there will be hundreds of questions like, why Sanskrit? It's a dead language. It's of no use. What's the relevance of this language? And so many things. Today, I will be, speaking something new, because I have been invited most of the times to speak on this topic, and sometimes I have to repeat the same things, and still people would like to listen those from me, even though it is a repetition, but they want to listen to it again and again. Some of these things I will also share, but something new which I will be sharing today's session, which I have not shared before, or I have not talked about it. Let's concentrate on this question, which is a very popular question, and then maximum times people ask this question, that this language is a dead language. I have not much problem with the word dead language, because I know it, what does it mean in the linguistics. But I have a problem with when it gets translated into any Indian language as Mrita Bhasha. So there are various topics which I have decided I will share. So step by step we will move ahead. So this first point is that I have a problem. So sometimes we have problem translating Sanskrit into English or other languages. I also find a problem translating English into Sanskrit. translating any other foreign languages into Sanskrit, because translation is something which is very, very dangerous, and very carefully it has to be done. Dangerous in the sense that if it is not properly done, carefully done, then it creates lots of misunderstandings. Lots of misconceptions grow around a particular word or a particular idea, particular concept, a particular feature, so which is not healthy. So today I will be focusing a little bit on like how it's not just Sanskrit is an untranslatable language, that most of the words cannot be translated properly or exactly into English, which is because there is a wide gulf between these two languages. Unless and until one has lived the culture here, is associated with the social issues, cultural issues, religious issues, ethical issues, and so many other things. Without this association with this land, with the people, with their mindset, it's extremely difficult for someone to translate. Even sometimes within India also, the problem comes like, suppose there is a text from Rajasthan and a person is given this responsibility of translating this text into say Hindi or English, but the person belongs to say Bengal, West Bengal. Sometimes it may create some problem in the sense that the person who is a Rajasthani person, who has lived, who knows the Rajasthani culture, who knows, because every state, every community has its own culture, has its own practice, has its own custom. So if a Rajasthani person takes the responsibility of translating a text which is written in Rajasthan or by a Rajasthani person, so he would do more justice than a Bengali person doing it. Like within India also, it's a problem. So because this association is very, very important, and when you talk about some of the foreigners translating Sanskrit texts, just imagine who have no cultural association, who have no deeper understanding, who have not lived, have not breathed the air in India. It's very difficult for them to grasp the intent of any text. The same thing happens also like when something is translated from English to Sanskrit. So then also it's a problem, because the whole idea, whole concept has to be understood properly. It's not, please remember that it's not the word which needs to be translated, but the force behind the word, the experiences behind the word, the association with the word. So all these things need to be translated, but not the word itself. So one has to look what this word represents, what are the experiences behind it, and then what are the different issues the word is connected with. A lot of things have to be taken care of before we enter into the translation. And this is where we will understand what are the issues, and then how Sanskrit is going to help us in understanding, having clarity. So I will go back again to the point where I started, that I have no problem with the dead language, which is the English expression, but I have a problem with the Mruta Bhasha when it gets translated into Mruta Bhasha. Now, dead in English has various connotations, various shades of meaning. It is not just like when we say dead body, we have certain meaning in our mind, a certain image we carry in the mind when we say dead body. But when we say for example, my telephone is dead, we don't carry the same sense as we have with regard to dead body, isn't it? So dead phone, suppose I say, even adverbially, the word dead is used. So sometimes we do say that, oh, he's walking dead slow. We don't carry the same image or same meaning as we carry in the case of dead body. We do say, like when in the post office, a letter doesn't have the address, so it's called the dead letter. We don't carry the same sense like dead body here, hearing dead letter. In economics, we were taught about something which is dead capital. It doesn't carry the same sense of dead body. Now, translating the word dead into mrita is again a mistake, in the sense that everywhere you cannot translate dead into mrita, because mrita has some different meaning. If you say dead body as mrita shariram, it's fine, absolutely fine. But translating dead telephone into mrita duravani will be ridiculous. Translating dead capital as mrita mula dhanam will be ridiculous. Translating dead letter as mrita patram will be ridiculous. Translating dead slow as mrita mantharata or mrita mandata will be ridiculous. So we look at what exactly is conveyed by the word dead in what context. The same way, the dead language cannot be mrita bhasha, because in linguistics, we understand dead language is not well spoken language, not widely spoken language, or used by minimum number of people. Because bhashanam, speaking, is the very life of a language. If less number people are doing the bhashanam, communication in that language, if it is not spoken widely by many people, so it will be termed as the dead language, and widely spoken languages will be as living languages. Now, if I have to translate dead language into Sanskrit, I would rather say that abahujana kathita bhasha, alpajana kathita bhasha, abahu prachalita bhasha, or alpa prachalita bhasha, alpa bhashita bhasha, something like that, but not mrita bhasha. Now, this mrita bhasha creates a problem. Now, we say that, oh, how can someone say that Sanskrit is mrita bhasha? But what is said, what is meant by dead language is to some extent true. But there are various other issues also we can take to prove that Sanskrit is not even dead language as it is spoken, as it is meant by in linguistics. Because if we look at the other primitive languages, existing primitive languages, so say, for example, you take Greek and Latin. The situation of Greek and Latin is really terrible from the spoken point of view, or from the, like if you compare it, the situation in Sanskrit, and then compare it with Greek and Latin. So in essence, Greek and Latin can be termed as is the dead language, but not Sanskrit. Why? Now we see, no nation will have so many awards given for writing books, creative writings in Sanskrit. We have the Kendra Sahitya Akadmi, along with many other Indian languages. So it has many awards for Sanskrit. That itself is a proof that how Sanskrit is living. I'll go put here many points. We have All India Radio, we have the Doordarshan, where the news bulletin is broadcast, is telecast every day, 2 times. This shows the Sanskrit is alive, much alive in our country. We have 18 Sanskrit universities. You may hardly find any university dedicated to a particular language, or sometimes you may find a Urdu university, but 18 Sanskrit universities in India, where Sanskrit is taught through the medium of Sanskrit. You have thousands and thousands of Veda Pathashala, where Sanskrit is much alive. You have now lakhs of people who are speaking Sanskrit. There are conferences which are taking place purely in Sanskrit. There are seminars, there are symposiums, there are discussion groups. Now social media, if you look at social media, the Sanskrit position is, though not very good or excellent, I can say, but it's still growing. There are many people who are dedicated in Telegram, in WhatsApp, in Facebook, in Instagram, in Twitter, and various other platforms. The bloggers are doing purely in Sanskrit. There are several online courses which are available if anyone wants to learn Sanskrit. There are paid workshops, courses, and then free workshops and courses which are there. Recently, IIT Roorkee organized the Subhashitam course or Sambhashana course. You can't believe around 5,000 people got connected just to learn this language in that course. And when it was uploaded onto the YouTube, they had above 50,000 views of the same courses. It shows such a demand is there for learning this language, and it's day by day growing, which is a very, very happy situation for India. Now, question comes, why do people take so much interest in learning Sanskrit? Whereas it is branded as, so many things, like people say, oh, it's an archaic language, old language, ancient language, classical language. It's like a museum. It's nice to see it in any museum. It's very, very difficult to learn. That's another complaint about Sanskrit. It's very, very difficult to learn. Another complaint, it's a Hindu language. It's meant for the Hindutvadis. Another big issue with this language. So connecting it with all kinds of wrong ideas, where it does much harm to our nation, much harm to our national development. Because Sanskrit is something which is very much needed, which must be promoted for the national development of India. Sri Aurobindo, who has spoken much about the Indian culture, if you read his Foundations of Indian Culture, or even the ideal of human unity, where he secret of the Veda, on the Gita, on the Vedas, you'll understand like how much, what kind of insightful and very profound thoughts about our culture, how the culture has to be promoted. Not just how the culture has to be promoted, but what it is meant by culture. By culture, I don't mean in the sense like the word culture is used in English by many. I'm using it in the sense of what we understand about Sanskriti. There is a huge difference between culture and Sanskriti. That's a different topic. I'm not going deep into that. Maybe in the question answer session, if there is any question related to it, I will bring it up. But Sanskrit has a better position in India at present. The radio Divyavani, which I started in the year 2013, 15th of August, with the idea. Now, internet is flooded with many, like videos, audios, and many digital tools. But in 2013, the situation was not like that. The idea came up that if people have to learn Sanskrit, if we have to take Sanskrit to people, then there has to be much material available on the internet where people can just listen to Sanskrit, listen to stories, listen to the Sanskrit plays, listen to Sanskrit speeches, listen to Sanskrit songs, listen to Sanskrit shlokas, mantras, songs, conversations, and varieties of materials. And in 2013, very, very less materials were available on the internet. So this is where I had decided that no, let's begin something of this nature, which is a 24/7 radio. The world's first ever and one and only so far 24/7 radio, which is accessed in 165 countries, and on a daily basis lakhs of people are listening to this radio. Though I must confess that I have not been able to do much justice to the content of this radio because I'm single-handedly managing it with hardly any support from even the Sanskrit communities. So creating 24 hours of content is not an easy task, but still I have been managing it for last 7 years. And slowly it will increase when more people join with us. So this shows, and this is how we each Indian, now people, many Indians also put the question that, like whatever questions we put, I answered to them that, like, why do you want to hold responsible someone else for the decline? Why not you hold responsible yourself as a cause of that decline? What have you contributed towards it? How many children you have encouraged that they should learn Sanskrit? What effort you have made from this, like for promoting Sanskrit, for encouraging others? How much effort you have made to learn it? Each and every Indian must make little effort to learn this language, because this is the true identity of an Indian, that I know the language of my motherland. Knowing our own mother tongue, given the situation with mother tongue, is really pathetic. Along with Sanskrit, we need to contemplate much on the Indian languages. Every state must give much importance to its own language. And Sanskrit, believe me, lives much through the regional languages of India. When regional languages of India, they are promoted, they are studied properly, carefully, Sanskrit is automatically promoted through that. Because Sanskrit lives through that. Not only that, they enrich each other. Every regional language contributes something towards the promotion of Sanskrit. And for the survival of that language, also, Sanskrit provides lots of materials. These are the topics which are very vast topic and needs much time to discuss about, go deep into it. But I'm just bringing certain points, so then I throw some ideas by which you all those who are participating and listening to it can start thinking about it. So coming to like why people are taking interest in this language. What is there in this language that people should learn and that people are taking interest in it? For several hundred years, we have been taught very wrongly about our nation, about all that existed in the past, all the glorious features of our nation, what the ancient people contributed, and what relevance of that contribution is there even today or for the future. So we have been kept ignorant about it because there was an attempt to suppress all these things and bring out something else which is truly destructive for this culture, this nation. There has been much attempt towards breaking, like which we call the breaking India forces. And the breaking India forces are much more powerfully working towards creating problem at each level. This is where there has been a strong feeling amongst many who truly love their nation, who truly love their country, love their language, how to protect it. This is one of the major reasons like why many people and why it is needed that we should learn Sanskrit. And why should we? So learning Sanskrit means getting connected with the whole tradition therein. It's not just learning the language. It's not just about learning the language. We are getting connected with the deeper truth and the foundations which was created by our seers and sages. Why Indian culture, Indian civilization, after so many thousands of years, has a living presence today when all other civilizations have gone into oblivion? All other civilizations have gone into oblivion. Why? It is because that a strong foundation was created. Very strong foundation was created, which, as Sri Aurobindo says in his Bhavani Bharati, a Sanskrit poem which Sri Aurobindo has written, a very powerful patriotic poem with 99 verses, and the one and only Sanskrit poem by Sri Aurobindo, where he says, Kalopi no nasayitum yamova, neither the time nor the god of death, Yama, has the power to destroy this nation, destroy this culture. So this is such a strong foundation which has been created, which is our Sanskriti. Learning Sanskrit is getting connected with that foundation, that Sanskriti. Because Sanskrit has been the medium of expression of the very Atman of our Bharata, of our land. And when we talk about Bharata, when we talk about this land, it is not merely a piece of land. It is a force, as Sri Aurobindo says repeatedly. It is a force, it is a Shakti. And learning Sanskrit is doing upasana of this Shakti. This Shakti upasana, if we truly love Indians, if anyone who is interested in knowing about India, one has to do this upasana. Otherwise, India can never be understood by anyone who has not done this upasana of this Shakti called the Bharata Shakti, the Bhavani Bharati. This is where Sanskrit has immense power in raising us from the level of inertia to the level of a higher consciousness, higher awareness, where we can feel the living presence of this Shakti. That is why Sanskrit is named as a mantric language. Now, again, one more misconception, misunderstanding, which I will clarify. When we talk about mantric language, it is not just any particular language which can be termed as mantric. Any language can be mantric, any language, including English, including any foreign language. Because there is certain conditions, if the languages they fulfill, then it is possible that the language can be raised from its level of inertia to the level of a mantric language. It all depends upon who uses the language, how the language is used, for what purpose the language is used, from what level of consciousness the language is used. When Tulsidas is writing his Ramcharitmanas, when Kabir Das is writing using a language, those languages are termed as apabhransha or dialects. Yet one can feel the force of mantra in that language, that mantric force. Why? Because it has been used by someone from a very high level of consciousness. So they have raised that language, not that anyone who speaks Awadhi is, bringing out that force of mantra. When Sri Aurobindo is writing in English, his Life Divine or Savitri or any other text, he's using English. But if you, with an open mind, start reading Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Sri Aurobindo's Life Divine, you can feel that presence, you can feel that mantric force, because it has been written from a very high plane of consciousness. With regard to Sanskrit, like when we say Sanskrit is a mantric language, And this is one of the most important features of this language. Why it has to be learned is that Sanskrit, right from its inception, for thousands and thousands of years, has been used for a different purpose. What is that purpose? The purpose is Atmanam Viddhi. If you go to the ancient texts and ask these rishis who created these ancient texts, the sacred texts, Vedas, Upanishads, Gita, Tantra, Darshan texts, the Darshanika Granthas, Darshana Granthas, philosophical texts. Ask what is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of yoga? What is the purpose of doing tapasya? What is the purpose of education, learning? The one answer that you will get is Atmanam Viddhi, know thyself. If my education cannot create that self-awareness in me, then what kind of education I have got? That I know everything, but I don't know myself. I'm not aware about myself. But I can tell the whole history of the world. I'm loaded with information, but I don't know myself. So that is where one finds that our education system gives us products, put it in the quotation, products, not what was thought by Swami Vivekananda as man making, or what was extended, this whole idea of man making education extended by Sri Aurobindo, not just man making, but divine man making. Where is that education? If we need to bring a radical change in the system of education, radical change in the way that we think, we need to bring Sanskrit back to our day-to-day life. We need to have a deeper association with this language. It's very much necessary because through this language that we can create that. So Sanskrit as a mantric language, and when we are talking about a mantric language, let's understand what are the features of a mantric language. When do we call a language as mantric language? The first and foremost feature of a mantric language is that it's our inner experiences, ideas, thoughts, feelings, emotions, everything that happens in our consciousness, which needs to be expressed, can be expressed in mantric language without loss. No loss of content of a realization of an experience is one of the most important qualities of a mantric language. When a rishi in a heightened consciousness has a certain realization, a vibration takes place. That vibration encodes within itself the whole realization, the whole experience. And then that potent rhythmic vibration containing the holistic essence of the realization or the experience is known as mantra. That's why the mantra is a total realization, is so pure that there is no loss of content. So one of the most important features of the mantric language, that content loss is almost nil. The second, that a mantric language uses minimum number of words to give expression to the inner experiences, realizations, feelings, emotions, sensations, minimum language. Therefore, Sanskrit has been a very, very precise language. A language like mathematics is as precise as mathematics. Precision is another important feature of the Mantric language. Very minimum words. You can't believe the biggest grammar book in Sanskrit given to us by Panini, Maharshi Panini, which describes more than 300 millions of words. More than 300 millions of words. Because if you look at the wealth of vocabularies in Sanskrit is immense. If you put together all the languages, living languages of the world today, still the number of vocabularies in Sanskrit, they will not be even close to that number. That's why here we say Ananta, infinite. Ananta vai Shabdaha. Ananta, infinite, endless. And you can believe when you start learning it and then understand how the words are formulated. One can create enormous amount of vocabularies which are needed to meet the challenges of the coming ages. Whatever new ideas, new objects, new thoughts, anything which is needed, that in Sanskrit one can create that word. It can supply enormous amount of words to any language, creates. It's fabulous. Now just imagine 300 millions of vocabularies Panini is describing through his grammar book, which is biggest grammar book. And believe me, such is the precision with which Panini has given to us that one can carry Panini's Ashtadhyayi in one's own pocket. It's like a pocket book. You just need few sheets, 10, 20 sheets, just to print 4,000 compact sentences. Is it not amazing? That 4,000 compact sentences and the way Panini has composed this, it is not just precise, it is so systematic and scientific that it works. Panini's Ashtadhyayi is a perfect software programming. All those who are into programming, into coding, into software engineering, they will understand better Panini's technique that he has employed. It is a perfect software which is given to us, which is created by Panini so many thousands of years before, without the help of any hardware. Please remember, like today, if any software engineer has to give us any program, he needs a hardware. But Panini has given to us a software programming without any hardware. There are many experts in Panini's grammar who say they have studied it thoroughly, spent 40 years, 50 years studying Panini. Yet they say that we need maybe few more lives to understand Panini in detail or totally. That is the content, the rich content that one finds in Panini's Ashtadhyayi. And another beautiful thing which I will discuss, though it is going to be a little, philosophical, yet I need to discuss it, I need to share it with you, so then you understand that Panini, while creating such a highly technical text, like grammar, a dry subject which is considered by many, has not deviated from the deeper principles of spirituality, Adhyatma. Because Adhyatma is the very keynote of our Sanskriti. Whether you Bharadwaj is giving us the Vaimanika Shastra, the text on aeronautics, or Parashara is giving us a text on farming, or Nagarjuna is giving us a text on alchemy, or any other rishi is giving us a text on metallurgy. Name any science, you will find some original text in Sanskrit. Name any science, you will find some original ideas or original text given in Sanskrit. You'll find it in Sanskrit. It's not just as branded by many people that it's a religious language. Religious texts are very few. If you look at and start analyzing or start understanding the total number of texts or different subjects in which the texts are available, 12 to 15% text will be purely religious in nature. Rest of the text, you talk about economics, politics, sociology, any scientific branch of system, that you will find this Sanskrit texts. So it is not, so we cannot just take those 12 to 15% religious texts. Again, the word religion also has its own limitation. But we are using it in the sense of like sampradaya or parampara, but not in the sense of the dharma, the Sanatana dharma, or some sacredness that we attach to a text. So just imagine that whatever text, even Vatsyayana is writing the Kama Sutra. Bharadwaja is giving us the Vaimanika Shastra, the text on aeronautics. Panini is giving us the most technical Sanskrit grammar text. But none of these rishis have deviated even a step from the principles of Adhyatma. The beauty of this text, and when we learn Sanskrit properly, why Sanskrit is needed? Because we get acquainted with the whole background, whole tradition therein. That helps us understanding many. I'll tell you, like, at a personal level, if I do not understand a particular concept, my first effort is that let me translate it into Sanskrit. The very process of translating the idea into Sanskrit gives so much of clarity into a word, into a concept, into certain ideas. So it adds lots of clarity to our understanding. Here is a language which adds lots of clarity to our understanding. Now coming to how Panini's highly technical text, Ashtadhyayi, which is almost a perfect software programming, helps us understanding the principles of Adhyatma. Now, if some of you are familiar, I'm sure most of you have studied Sanskrit, or some of you may not have studied Sanskrit or not familiar with it. I will explain you those aspects. That in all languages, when we go to the syntax, the sentence formation, we find the cases. Like you have the nominative case, you have dative case, you have ablative case. So the cases are used. Say, for example, you want to make a sentence in the sense of from, like from my home. That is ablative case. The fifth case, which uses this prefix from, or preposition from. So in the sense of like of or belonging to, you use the sixth case, which is the possessive case or genitive case. In the sense of like to, at, towards, you use the objective case. So Sanskrit is a highly inflectional language which uses 8 different cases. Nominative, the first case; objective or accusative, the second case; instrumental, the third case; dative, the fourth case; ablative, the fifth case. So that means you will have subject, object, instrumentation, dative, okay, the recipient, and then the from, ablative. Then you have possessive, sixth case; you have locative case, the seventh case; Then you have the vocative where you address Sambodhana. Now, all these cases we know. And everywhere, logically, it has to start with the first case, isn't it? Like when we're talking about system, when we're talking about order, it has to start with number one, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't start with 8, 6, 3, 4, 5, like that. So you go to any grammatical text, you will find this, like first is subject, then object, the 1, 2, 3 order. But in Panini, you will find not the karta, not the subject, not the first case, but the fifth case as the first case. He mentions, I mean, as the first case in the sense, it is mentioned first in that, set of rules where he mentions not karta, but he mentions apadana. Apadana is the fifth case first. That can be answered. Looking at Panini's technique, there will be a different answer to this question. And many people who have studied Panini's Ashtadhyayi, they will understand that. They have that understanding, like why Panini has put apadana or the fifth case in the beginning, not the first case. Now, this was a question in me from my childhood when I got introduced to Panini's rules. But one could give only that answer, looking at like how it fits much into Panini's technique. He has done it deliberately. But at the same time, when I grew up, I studied the Vedantic texts. I studied the Upanishads, the Vedas, the philosophical texts, and especially when I studied Sri Aurobindo's interpretations on those, I could get a different answer to this question. Then for me, Panini's Ashtadhyayi becomes a moksha shastra, a shastra which can, help me strengthening that spiritual foundation in me, increasing that, intensifying my aspiration for growing to the fullness or the realization of the self, which is the purpose of Adhyatma. Now I'll tell you like what was that answer? Why Panini uses apadana, and then how he fits it into his technique. Now when the creation begins, the creation, as we have seen, I'm not talking about the Big Bang theory. I'm talking about what has been the realization of the seers and sages. The realization of the seers and sages that one unity of consciousness, that indivisible consciousness, that one, the supreme reality, it moves from itself to become this multiplicity. So there is this movement involved in the process of creation. And this is what you will exactly find in Panini's description. It has to be the first one to be mentioned because this is how the creation begins. Panini makes us aware the whole process of creation. I will mention the Sutra of Panini. Panini says, Dhruvam apaye apadanam. Apadana is the technical term which he uses for the fifth case, the ablative case. And what is apadana? He defines Dhruvam apaye apadanam. Apaye means like when a separation takes place. When a separation takes place, the fixed part, for example, the leaf is falling from the tree. So the separation is on both sides. The tree is getting separated from the leaf and the leaf is getting separated from the tree. But the fixed part is apadana. The fifth case has to be employed there. So that is why the example that we give is vrikshat patram patati. From the tree, the leaf falls. From the tree, vrikshat, because vriksha is the fixed part, dhruvam. Now when you contemplate on the principles of creation, the beginning of the creation. This dhruvam apaye apadan can be interpreted as the eternal unmoving from which all movements proceed. The eternal unmoving from which all movements proceed. Look at the depth with which Panini has worked out his technique, combining the Adhyatmic, the greater realization, the principles of creation, and employing the technique and putting Apadana as the first. Little more. The next sutra in that context, in Apadana context, he says, Bhitrarthanam bhaya hetu. I'll explain this. Like he says, like suppose you are afraid of something. You are afraid of a ghost. You are afraid of a tiger. Bhaya hetu, like who is creating fear in you is Apadana. So that's why you say, Vyagrat bibhemi. I'm afraid of the tiger. That means the fear is coming from the tiger. Vyagrat bibhemi. But now here, if Apadana, separation is the keynote of the fifth case, then when I'm afraid of a tiger, where is the separation? It is rather in union, I get the fear. If the very thought of the ghost, or if I meet the tiger, in union, that fear is generated. Where is separation? That's again was a question in my mind from my childhood. I could get the answer to it while reading Sri Aurobindo's interpretation on Ishopanishad. When Panini says Bhaya Hetu, it is not the tiger which is the source of the fear. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the principal Upanishads, it says, what is the source of the fear? Dvitiyad vai bhayam, that the fear comes from a second entity. As long as we are living in a consciousness which is divided, our separative ego sense, which separates us from each other, like I'm different, you are different, he's different, she's different. It is the play of that separative ego sense which is the source of our fear. If we can establish the unity and oneness within us, then there will be no fear. That's where you hear so many stories. The seers and sages, fearlessly, they used to move with the tiger, sit with the tiger, sleeping with the tiger, many dreadly animals. There was no fear because there was this sense of oneness. So here, when I'm studying the language, studying the highly technical texts of Panini, I could sense like how much he has infused his technique and then has corroborated with the spiritual realization. The deeper principles of Adhyatma is also brought out in this highly technical text. And when I know Sanskrit, I can understand this background. It leads me much to much clarity. It leads me a total understanding of many things or deeper understanding of many things because it's a language which is designed in a manner which can generate much clarity, much joy, and which can, raise my consciousness and liberate me from the limitations and take me to what is unlimited, what is vast, what is large. And there are plenty of features which we can talk. So I talked about the mantric language, yet even Panini's sutras in this sense become mantric. The sutra style of composition itself is a very, very unique feature of this language. I don't think there is any language in the world which has this unique sutra style of composition. You have aphorisms, short, compact sentences, but they're very different from sutra. Another uniqueness that the sutras can be composed in Sanskrit, using Sanskrit. The sutra style of composition is very, very unique. One can, go on talking about what a sutra is. What is this sutra? You have Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Vatsyayana Kama Sutra. You have Panini's sutras. Plenty of sutra writings you have. We talked about this mantric language, the Sanskrit as a mantric language. Another important feature of this language that I will talk very briefly before we conclude and then invite questions, that it's a language where there is an eternal relationship between sound and sense. An eternal relationship between sound and sense. Where in other languages, the sound and sense have no connection. It's conventionally decided that let this word have this sound meaning. By analyzing the word, there are plenty of languages also where one can find out the history of the words, but that process is not that intense as it is in Sanskrit. Sanskrit has retained this till date with much intensity. This eternal relationship between sound and sense. Here you speak of a word, that word itself will explain, that word itself will explain why it stands for a particular idea or object. For example, I say this is hand. In English, we say hand. But can anyone explain why it is called hand? Can the word HAND give you the understanding that why it is called hand? The answer will be a clear no. But if you take a Sanskrit word, in Sanskrit this is called hasta. In Sanskrit it's called hasta. You can ask any Sanskrit knowing people. Many Sanskrit knowing people may not be able to answer this, but all those who have studied properly and are using it consciously will be able to answer to this question, that why hand is called hasta. Now hasta, every word in Sanskrit comes from a root sound. That root sound has ranges of meanings and experiences associated with it. When we go deep, analyze, we will find out the answer in that. Now, has is the root sound from which the word hasta has come. Now, some of you may be knowing, like if someone asks you, what does the root sound has means? Has means to laugh, to smile. But most of the times we take it literally. Then you can ask this question, does the hand smile or laugh? That's why it is called hasta. What connection it has with laughing or smiling? But that's a very literal, gross meaning of it. When you say smile, you look at the experience, like what happens? When you smile, you open up, you bloom. Okay. So that's why in Sanskrit you say pushpam hasati. When a flower is blooming, you say pushpam hasati. It's opening. So if you say the flower is laughing, it will be ridiculous. The pushpam hasati, flower is blooming, opening, petal by petal, smiling and shining. So has means not just to laugh, but to open, to stretch. Opening also stretching. So the hand is a tool which can be stretched for doing all our work. Elephant is called hasti. Elephant is called hasti because it uses its trunk, it stretches, uses it like a hand. It stretches for doing its work. So stretching is one of the properties of has and one of the functions of hand, that it can stretch, it can contract, it can stretch for doing its work. So it is called hand. Because it is used for doing all works, for action, to do, it's also known as kara. Kara means to do, kru, karoti, kara. So like this, when you analyze every word, The word itself will explain why it stands for a particular object. You can find out the eternal relationship between sound and sense. The sense emerges out of the depth of the sound itself, of that vibration itself, carrying that meaning. Any word here you analyze, because of this transparent system of root sounds and the formation of root sounds from the seed sounds, the ranges of experiences again associated with the seed sounds and root sounds. It's an amazing study, amazing exercise just to study few words and then understand why a particular word means something or refers to a particular object. If 10 different objects are having the same feature, you can use the same word for those 10 different words because those 10 different objects have the same feature. In that sense, Sanskrit is not confined to any object. It's not an object specific language. It is a property based language. All the words that you find, these are names of the objects, the words referring to different properties of the object, not the object itself. Because the object today it is there, tomorrow it may not be there. It's temporal, it's impermanent, it can change its shape, but the properties are eternal. Properties are eternal. And here you find a language which has always been dealing with the eternal principle. So it is an eternal language, having its relevance eternally. Its relevance is for all ages. We ask question, what is the relevance of this language for today? And then I make this bold statement that it is not just for today, for ages to come. It has its relevance for ages after ages, because it deals with all that is eternal, and it has that potentiality to connect us with all that is eternal and all that we need for our survival or survival of our languages. Sanskrit has that potentiality which can offer solutions to much of our problems or all of our problems, lasting solutions to not particular problems, but what is the source of all our problems. When we contemplate on that, Sanskrit indeed a language which has much to contribute towards providing lasting solutions to the source of all the problems of the humanity, and has the power to liberate the humanity from its limitations. Thank you. With this, I end my sharing, and then whatever questions are there, I would like to proceed and address those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sampada, for talking about such a vital topic, Sanskrit. Before we move on to the question and answers, we would request all the participants to kindly fill the feedback forms, because through the email IDs that we'll get, we'll be sharing some learning material on that as well. So please take a minute to fill the feedback form.
You're on mute.
So is someone moderating the question or asking, or are we allowing the participants to ask their questions?
Yeah, Sampada, I'll be asking the questions
Okay.
on their behalf.
Okay.
I think we can begin with the first question. So the first question is from Chandra Mohan and Ahilaji. Would like to know any online or any other place to learn Sanskrit for a beginner. Also, any books that can be used to learn it.
Okay, so there are plenty of online resources which are available. So you can get connected. Suppose you are connected on the Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, uh, even in Telegram and WhatsApp groups. There are plenty of online materials and courses which are available for free, which are available on payment basis. So you can attend, and there is no this book or that book uh, because I address to this question as that I don't say that okay you use this book not that book in a sense. Sometimes some books are very well done, some books are just casual books, but it all depends upon with what approach, how are you approaching those materials. And then if you can find a good teacher who can teach that, it will be good, because most of the self-taught books also have their own limitations that they cannot address to all the questions. So finding out a good teacher and then learn it. So if anyone wants to get connected, say for example, like I have uh, uh, I'm connected with this company which we have formed, a group of people called Language Curry. So there is an application called Language Curry. This is in last 1 year we have above 2 lakhs download. So which is one of the best Sanskrit learning apps in the world today. So we have a proper pedagogy which we have followed, and a lot of materials that you will get it. It facilitates the conversational Sanskrit. You will can learn vocabulary, you will learn subhashitas, you will learn about the alphabet. So you can download language curry apps and encourage others also to download language curry apps. And then if anyone wants to clarify their doubts or attend the live sessions, that application itself will have the announcements for the upcoming live sessions. I myself take on the language curry. Every month we have Sanskrit learning courses which are going on. So this batch has started on the 7th, will continue up to 22nd. So every month we announce for the language learning. So that much I offer from my side. And then there is another set, MR Jaipuria school, which like from 2003 onwards I'm associated with that school, for which I have created a curriculum called Deva Bhasha. So above 25,000 students are learning this from this textbook, and many other individuals also take this book because it's designed in a very different way, addressing the need. Because many people say Sanskrit is so difficult to learn because the approach is the grammar approach, that you learn all the declension tables, conjugation tables, different parts of the speech, the rules, regulations, and everything. But those are not necessary for speaking the language or learning the language. Those are necessary. Anyone wants to study particularly the grammatical aspect of the language, grammar, they can study at a higher level, but at the beginning level it's not needed. So that entire 10 books, we start the Sanskrit teaching from play school up to class 8 compulsorily. This is one and only school in India with ICSE board mainstream school which is Sanskrit from play school to class 8. And the entire curriculum, everything, teachers training, it is all designed and then taken care of by me. And in these 10 books you will not find any grammatical terms, you will not find shabdarup, dhaturup, or all these things. Maybe in the class 7 and 8 I have given it in parishist and in appendix just to refer to, but in the text, in the lessons, you will not find any grammatical terminology. Teachers are not allowed to use the grammatical terminologies in the classroom. Haste khelte Sanskrit, very playfully, simple Sanskrit, conversational Sanskrit, taking care of the reading comprehension, writing foundation, functional grammar, conversational skill. Keeping these four aspects, this entire curriculum is designed. You can visit devabhasha.in, DEVABHASHA, devabhasha.in, to know the details, and all the songs, shlokas, and mantras which are a part of that text, they are recorded professionally and uploaded onto this website, where you can teach your children the shlokas and songs, listen to the audio. If you are a teacher, you can use it in the classroom. So that's how we promote Sanskrit among the children.
Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the next question. The question is from Kaushalendra Das. What are your thoughts on making Sanskrit universities multidisciplinary?
Yes, I would rather say, because I can be little critical about many Sanskrit universities also. This is what I keep feeling. Though we have 18 Sanskrit universities, in most of the universities, the same old pattern of teaching which is going on, and the same, same subjects. Like you have Sahitya, literature, you have Vyakarana, grammar, you have Darshan, philosophy, you have Purana, the Puranic texts, and you have say Karma Kanda or Jyotisha, astronomy and astrology. So these are the subjects which are taught in most of the universities. So I think all the universities, Sanskrit universities, they need to be innovative, bring new subjects, okay, but without compromising. That thing has to be kept in the mind, without compromising with the basic principles and then foundations of the Sanskrit language and the Sanskriti. So all other subjects can be brought into the domain and taught in Sanskrit university, but linking it with the Sanskrit tradition and principles of Sanskrit language. Then all the Sanskrit universities will be truly doing justice to the work which needs to be done. Merely bringing all other subjects and then making it interdisciplinary and compromising with the principles of our Sanskrit and Sanskrit, that way it is not going to help. So they have to very consciously, very carefully designed courses. How do we link it again? Suppose we bring journalism, we bring computer science, we bring political science, we bring various other subjects. How do we link it? Even it is necessary that we can bring even the whole spa, because today spa is a big business, and that there are courses which are offered by many modern universities on spa. So we can link it with the Ayurveda Abhyanga, and then bring out, link it, create a course, beautiful course which Sanskrit universities can offer on spa. So the vision is needed, and how do we link it and then maintain that principle? Then we can flourish and do justice to our tradition, our language, and all that needs to be done for the promotion of it. That's what I can offer, Kushalendraji. And
Thank you.
thank you for asking this question.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Facebook by Achyuta Mishra. In this technical era, is Sanskrit relevant?
I think I have answered enough to this. Is Sanskrit relevant? Not thus in this era, but in all the ages to come. However highly technical we may be, science and technology, if in a deeper sense, is nothing but the expansion of the human consciousness. So, and Sanskrit is a language of consciousness, and it helps immensely in the expansion of consciousness and expression of all, all that human consciousness, that expanded, that grown consciousness gives expression to. So it is a perfect tool for that. So it will have its relevance for all the ages, however evolved the humanity may be.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Rajesh. How to make masses equipped with Sanskrit Sambhashan skills and what can motivate them? Is using Sanskrit as a computer programming language or an AI language one reason?
See, it can be linked with, but so far we do not have any, like proof, or not much work has happened, like using Sanskrit as a programming language, but the possibilities are being explored. So we don't have, like solid evidence to prove that, okay, here someone has used Sanskrit as a programming language, but the possibilities are there. So in the, like what happens in the research of AI, artificial intelligence, or natural language processing, or machine translation, it has a lot of limitations, because Sanskrit, in a sense, in the deeper sense, is very, very complex. Very, very complex, but we should not discard because of this complexity. The human consciousness itself, human being itself, is very, very complex. The entire creation, if you look at the principle, is very complex. So that complexity itself is the reason of the richness. So if it is very simple, where is the richness? The richness is not there. So that complexity creates further problems. So we need to understand, maybe like, the science and technology, the way it has grown, has not yet been capable of understanding that complexity, and then finding solutions to the problems emerged from that deeper complexity of the language. So when there is more clarity about the complexity and the problems emerged from the complexity of the human consciousness itself, so maybe there some solution will arise, but a lot of effort is being made. So that is one thing that, where many scientists, many computer scientists, many people who are engaged and then making their efforts. But bringing it to the mass, there are various ways of doing it. So it has to be very interesting, innovative, and it has to be a part of the education system, and it has to be a part of life. So instead of, like asking who is doing what, whether government is doing anything for this, or whether this organization is doing, this individual is doing or not. So if we all Indians, whenever this question comes to us, if we can say like, how can I contribute? What am I doing for this? Can I learn Sanskrit on my own and then inspire another 10 people? Can I, like inspire my own family members to learn at least little Sanskrit? So we have to make at a personal level all these efforts to bring Sanskrit. And at least all those who have attended this course and present, I mean, today's session, I would request that make little effort to learn Sanskrit. So that way, like all these sessions will have some values or some usefulness. Otherwise, it's just I speak, you come, or someone else speaks, you come, listen, sounds fine, then we forget. That way, we cannot make good impact or good progress. So we make little efforts. We can begin with a baby step, but if there is sincerity, intensity in our aspiration, surely we will be successful in that field. But every one of us must make little effort to learn it and promote it in our own way, and try to make it more interesting. And there are many interesting materials which are available. Few years before it was more difficult, but today with the help of technology, and today because of COVID-19, the kind of digital literacy which has happened in the whole world, it still makes our task much easier. So we should take advantage of this digital literacy, and then through online and through various innovative activities must spread the language. And today is the right time. Today is the right time.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Guru Murthy ji. It really upsets to see that there is a hard opposition to a great language like Sanskrit in states like Tamil Nadu. It is mainly attributed to Hinduism and religion, but not nationality. How do we face such opposition, and how do we continue to encourage our kids to learn Sanskrit?
Yeah, I think that opposition has been there and then will continue to be there because it is their cup of tea. So they will go on that. But we have to contemplate more on, like, more powerful we are in our own tradition, more we are grounded in our tradition and the language. So those breaking India forces will lose their own power instead of fighting with those. So if we can spend our time and energy in learning this language and making it a part of life, that way I think it will be more helpful than. But of course, this opposing them, fighting with them, because they create a lot of wrong ideas. They push it into the mainstream through education, through various platform, and then brainwash the young minds. And there are various other means, very narrow means they follow in destroying this culture, because they have this agenda. And then how the this breaking India forces, it is not just in India, the higher level of forces which work to destroy this culture, because the whole aim is to destroy this culture, destroy this nation, and then take over it. So that we need to be more careful. But there is one more thing, that today's young mind, young generation is not inclined to cling to the past. This whole sense of clinging to the past must vanish. We should, past is the foundation. We must not forget the past. We must keep the past. We must cling to the foundation. But all the past forms must be destroyed. Based on that foundation, the new forms must be created. New forms of religion, new forms of rituals, new forms of philosophy, new forms of design, new forms. But based on this foundation, then only we can make it more relevant. Otherwise the young generation is not just like happy with the old forms of rituals, and then there is a tendency of finding out which is a matter of common sense, like most of the times you see there are many people, even learned people, working on like the science behind all the rituals, all the practices. One of the foreign students of mine, I mean Indian students, but living in some foreign countries, it's like, why this tendency of finding out science behind everything? Why? This is our tradition, this is a practice. You want to practice, you practice it. If you're not happy with it, you don't practice it. To find out, or if you are transcended above, you don't practice it. Or before you say that this is something wrong, so you must like feel that okay, this is not helpful for me. But for everything trying to find out a science is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. So we must not cling and then try to prove all the old forms are like the best forms. So this unnecessary glorification of the past must go. But the foundation we should not forget. Based on this foundation, based on these spiritual realizations, we must grow and then create new forms. Look at everything from that point of view, from that higher consciousness point of view. Otherwise, again, we will be ridiculed by our own people, because it doesn't hold true. It cannot be, because it's a wrong way of proving everything scientifically, when there is it's a matter of common sense.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Facebook by Tripuraji. Is there any possibility of attuning matter to respond to the higher forces by Sanskrit mantras?
Yeah. Possibility in the sense that, like, if you think in terms of patterns, this whole creation is filled in with patterns. You talk any subject, this very language is also designed in such a manner that it resonates much with the uh, universal patterns. And every pattern that you find in the nature, in mathematics, in Sanskrit, in poetry, so in the language, the structure of the language, because it's a highly rhythmic language, in the mantras, they are representatives of that universal cosmic pattern or cosmic meter which sustains the whole creation. So Sanskrit is immensely capable of linking us with the universal pattern through various patterns that we see in Sanskrit. You take a particular word, how it is designed, or you take the different metrical patterns that we have, and the connection that it has with the nature, the connection it has with the music, the connection it has with design, architecture, everything you can link Sanskrit. And if you think in terms of patterns, you can link every subject with every subject. So, but we hardly think in these terms. So that's where we lose interest in many subjects. So then for many people, chandas are just poetic patterns. But for me, chandas is such an amazing topic that it can link our consciousness, individual consciousness, with the universal consciousness, because these patterns are representatives of the universal patterns, universal cosmic meter, and they have the power to link us, unite us with that, and give us that kind of ananda, give us that kind of sense of vastness, largeness, rhythm, order, harmony. They can harmonize our life, our thoughts, our way of thinking, our way of life, bring a lot of harmony at the individual level, at the collective level.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Sanjay. I am a working professional and I am really interested in learning Sanskrit. Could you please suggest some Sanskrit universities which offer correspondence courses?
I think almost all universities, Sanskrit universities, have some corresponding correspondence course. You take Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan, Delhi, or Tirupati National Sanskrit University, Kavi Kulaguru, Kalidas Sanskrit University. So plenty of universities they offer online courses, correspondence courses.
Thank you so much. I would request Dawn to please unmute and ask your question directly.
Namaste. Thank you for listening to my question. I'm a student and I find this language really deep and colourful. And having learned that the self is not the me, it enables the student to go to the root of their self. Sanskrit, the Dhatu's root, every word meaning and purpose. Would you agree, though, that the Vedas, Upanishads, Jyotish, Ayurveda should also be studied alongside Panini's grammar to get a better understanding? And sounding is essential for other language students that are trying to, especially for English, because we tend to be a bit lazy with our words. We don't use the same, don't sound the same. Sorry, I'm getting nervous now, but I wondered if you would you agree that that was necessarily to really get.
But what is the question? I didn't get the question properly.
Okay. Would you agree, alongside learning Sanskrit, that the Vedas, Upanishads and Jyotish Ayurveda should also be studied alongside Panini's grammar for a better understanding? And should sounding be essential to other language students, especially like English people trying to learn Sanskrit and the soundings?
Still, I'm little unable to follow the question.
I can probably
Yeah, you can
say it.
say that if you have understood the question properly.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
is little.
somewhat.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah,
what I
tell.
got out of it, she's saying that she's a student and she finds Sanskrit language deep and colorful. Would you agree that the Vedas, Upanishads, etc., should also be studied alongside the grammar?
So, yes, surely, because grammar is something which explains you the rules and regulations, how the language is used or how the language is to be treated or used. But the application of that is in the literature. If grammar is studied in isolation without taking the literature into consideration, into its domain, then where are you going to implement it? So, studying the Vedas, Upanishads, or any other text along with the grammar, it strengthens the language learning itself. They must be studied, and also, as I said, like there are many principles based on which even the grammatical texts are formed. So those will be understood if the Vedas and Upanishads, the texts like Vedas and Upanishads, they're understood properly, then one will understand various other deeper principles which are employed by the seers and sages while designing even the technical texts. So I hope this is what you expected from me as a reply.
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so since we are running very short of time and we have a lot of questions still pending, I would request all those whose questions have not been answered yet to please put those questions in the feedback form that we shared with you. And meanwhile, we'll just take the last question for the day. So the question is, like as a last question, could you please say a few words about Safik and how participants can take this exploration forward?
Okay. So Safik, in short, but Sri Aurobindo Foundation for Indian Culture, which is engaged in various activities which help in promoting our culture, our Sanskriti, and with a little more importance on uh, promoting the Sanskrit language, though it is not confined to Sanskrit language and the few aspects, but it takes up many other aspects like the prenatal education or Indian culture, India's Renaissance. So various projects which are taken up by the SAFIC team, which has been working for last 25 years in creating enormous amount of materials. Whether anyone wants to say, for example, like one wants to study the Vedas, and we do here work in the light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So anyone wants to study the Vedas in the light of Sri Aurobindo, Upanishads in the light of Sri Aurobindo, Gita in the light of Sri Aurobindo, or Sri Aurobindo's original writings, or any other texts. So we have associated ourselves with another trust called Vande Mataram Library Trust, which aims to present thousands of texts in digital format. And so far, VMLT, Vande Mataram Library Trust, has been able to upload more than 28,000 texts. So by the year end, we are planning to upload around 50,000 texts and then provide the OCR, the editable format of that. So more editable texts which are available on internet, that will slowly, facilitate the machine translation or anything in the future. But we have hardly, like the amount of text which is needed, we don't have. So in collaboration with Vande Mataram Library Trust, we have been doing plenty of work. So providing various texts and then how to learn it, and different tools we have created. For example, like if anyone wants to get the verses of the Gita, Vedas, Upanishads on WhatsApp. So recently we have launched our WhatsApp bot program, through which on your WhatsApp, you just give the command that I want this Bhagavad Gita, verse number, chapter number 2, verse number, say 43. And you can get the audio, you can get the word by word meaning, you can get Sri Aurobindo's interpretation, you can, like learn the whole chapter. That link will be given, but you can get it on your WhatsApp without downloading our apps or without going to the website. So we work a lot creating digital tools through which our different text or the language learning can be facilitated. For example, like this Divyavani Sanskrit Radio, which is for the promotion of Sanskrit language. We have the Sanskrit Bala Sahitya Parishad, which is another important project of ours, which totally focuses on creating qualitative children's literature in Sanskrit. And we are perhaps the one and only organization which are, Samskrita Bala Sahitya Parishad is the one and only organization which is 100% focused on creating materials for children and qualitative children's literature in Sanskrit. So we hold conferences, seminars, different competitions among the students, and then creating this qualitative children's literature. Sometimes we get the help from the government of India also to publish books and then create different materials. So the whole purpose is like to bring Sanskrit to as many children as possible through this qualitative children's literature. So these are few works which I have I share now because of the time constraint. Otherwise, on the net itself, if you go to safic.in, that's our website, and if you go to our YouTube channel, so there is a particular video of 1 hour where I have explained the entire activity of SAFIC. You can take help of that to understand, or visit the website to see the different features and different activities which we have been doing. We have been very active in creating various programs and very active on social media also. So the whole purpose is like how much content that we can create and then share it with others, so then others can also learn it. So facilitating all this has been an important part of SAFIC.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for beautifully answering all the questions. And gratitude to all those who could participate in this session, both over Zoom and Facebook. We look forward for you joining our next session as well, which we'll announce over Instagram, Facebook, and emails too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Dhanyavad everyone. Punardarshanaya.